Now then, Darren is going to tell us why Donald Trump regaining the presidency would be good for Britain. Let's start the clock.
Well, folks, look, President Biden's just gone and I say good riddance to bad rubbish. Because President Biden does not like Britain. He's made that absolutely clear. Whilst he was here, he was taking selfies with Gerry Adams, for goodness sake. President Trump would never have done such a thing. Whilst he was here, he snubbed Rishi Sunak getting off that plane and visiting Northern Ireland and actually having a sit-down, a bi-latte, as they called it, with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. He couldn't even finish his coffee before Biden was off. I reckon we need President Trump back in the White House, and then the special relationship will be special again. He loved this country. He would have loved to come to the coronation in respect of our late Majesty. He would have offered a trade deal in an instant with Britain. He was for Britain, for Brexit, for Boris. And I reckon we would be all the better if he was back in the White House over slow Joe Biden. Right, I'll be then. Come on.
Oh, Darren. Do you not remember what it was like when we had Donald Trump as the president of the United States and the Prime Minister of this country, Boris Johnson or Theresa May? Those weren't comfortable relationships with those prime ministers. And I think the idea that Anglo-American relations are going to improve if Donald Trump is elected as the president in 2024 is for the birds.
So you reckon President Biden would be better for the bilateral relationship?
I think almost any president would be better than Donald Trump. I don't even want to see Donald Trump to win the Republican nomination. I'd like to see Nikki Haley win it.
I mean, Dominique, come on, right? President Biden clearly doesn't like this country very much.
I mean, come on. Like, even if you dislike Trump, which you clearly do, and believe that, you know, he wouldn't be sort of the second coming of Christ for this country, you can at least admit that Biden, and really it does seem to be a sort of Democrat attitude towards this country, particularly after Brexit, they're not so friendly anymore. I mean, my personal view is that this whole special relationship thing, I think it fell apart a long time ago. But Biden, do you really think he's that friendly with this country? The comments that he's made about Brexit, the comments that he's made about the English in his own autobiography, you know, the list goes on.
I mean, Benjamin, did it bother you at all seeing him posing, smiling like a Cheshire cat with Gerry Adams?
I mean, I think his downfalls recently have been sort of Gerry Adams and geriatrics, frankly. You know, that's, you know, those are things that don't go in his favour. But I think that Britain needs to take a hard look at itself, because the reason that we are not at the top of the list when it comes to America in a way that we were, the reason that Biden isn't prioritising the United Kingdom in a way that was more commonplace before, is because of decisions we've made ourselves, whether that's Brexit, and they warned us, the US did, that we'd be at the back of the queue, or whether
Democrats did.
or whether it's failing to stand close to America in other ways. I mean, and the truth is that I think that we should look at ourselves, not whinging about him liking Ireland over the last couple of days.
It's quite clear to me that the American population are a lot more than the Democratic Party, right? The Democratic Party didn't like Brexit. They like whackery and wokery and, frankly, turning American cities into crime-ridden hellholes.
Yes, I think a lot of people, well, we've seen how people have been moving, young aspirational people have been moving from Democrat states to Republican states because they want lower taxes, they want less burden when it comes to regulation.
But we've also seen young women move from red states to blue states because they want to have access to abortion.
That is true, but if we talk about the economy, and that is one of the major reasons why people move around the US, that's one of the major reasons why people move around the world. But I do think it's quite extraordinary that President Biden is even considering running again for the presidential candidate. It is really quite extraordinary, just in terms of the way he is able to communicate, or not able to communicate, and get across his message to the country. It really is quite extraordinary that he would consider it. But I think what should rule him out is the absolute disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. That should rule him out as being president, in my view.
I'll be on that point then. I mean, on the Afghanistan question, it's proven, right? You can look back at the 4 years in office that Donald Trump had. There were no interventions, there were no wars like that, there were no disastrous pullouts. Actually, President Trump presided over the West actually been emboldened to stand up to the likes of China, Iran, for example, and there were no escalations of the kind that we've seen since President Biden
Darren,
came
I'm
about.
so pleased that you brought up the disastrous Afghanistan pullout, because you know whose responsibility that was? Donald Trump.
He would never have done it.
It was Donald Trump who basically organised that disastrous pullout from Afghanistan. Yes, it did happen under Biden, but stewarded by Trump. The Iran deal that we had, which stopped Iran from enriching uranium to make nuclear weapons, Donald Trump pulled out of.
Yes, because
the idea that Donald Trump is better for international relations is farcical.
Biden also, rhetorically at least, gave the green light for Russia to invade Ukraine. He suggested that a little bit going to Russia would be okay. I think that he hasn't shown a strong stance when it comes to... I'm no Trump fan, but I don't think you can argue that President Biden has been good for America geopolitically.
But I don't think you can...
Yes, please do. On Afghanistan, because I just think you're factually incorrect there. When Donald Trump was president, the Taliban were under control. The minute Joe Biden took office, they started gaining more ground. And Biden and the Biden administration, whoever's responsible for international relations, they were aware that the Taliban were expanding and they chose to do nothing. And that's why the withdrawal was so disastrous. They even left weapons and aircraft behind. You cannot blame that on a previous president.
On that fundamental point, though, and Emily, I'll put this to you, I mean, the fact of the matter is, right, we in Britain want a US president that actually quite likes the country. And it's clear to me in everything that Biden did, saying he wouldn't come to the coronation, saying, you know, the selfie with Gerry Adams. I can't stress enough how much that actually really pained me, frankly, to see that selfie with Gerry Adams, and actually just the way, the smile across his face.
I agree, but I do think that we don't want to view Donald Trump with rose-tinted glasses.
Absolutely.
Because he talked a good game. He did talk about how Boris Johnson was, you know, Britain's Trump. He talked about how Brexit was this fantastic thing and it mirrored his leadership in the United States. But actually, he didn't push forward with a trade deal. He didn't push forward with those things. He was rather protectionist in his outlook. He wasn't thinking about, oh, free trade with the UK is going to be fantastic. So I think we should look at them both as very different people and decide whether on balance either would be the best president.
Dominique, I actually think that Brexit, the parallels between Brexit and Trump, whilst they are different, obviously it was leaving a political bloc, there are similarities in the sense of it was the deplorables, right? It was the people that shouldn't actually get a say over anything. Donald Trump was their man. Yeah. And actually, if only we had a Donald Trump here in Britain.
Yeah, and also it was about the deplorable sort of narrative of people, you know, the certain people that should have a voice and shouldn't have a voice. But it's also about wanting to put our respective countries first and actually prioritise our interests. And, you know, I'm not mad at Donald Trump for that. Protectionism gets a very bad rap. I think in the grand scheme of things, you know, if things are beneficial for that nation state, they should be pursued.
All right, that's it.